Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now let's talk about a fighter with a higher KO percentage than Manny Pacquiao. Right? Pacquiao currently is a little below 60%. Carl Frampton, the super bantamweight champion, is up at 70%. In other words, this guy is one of the hardest punchers in the sport. Big time puncher. Right? Extremely accurate with the punch. Now let me say this. He just had a fight against Chris Avalos that you need to look at. I've put the fight in my favorites here online. Carl Frampton is a bit of an enigma to me. He's outside the box. His game is mysterious in my eyes. The best way I can talk about him is by contrasting this last fight with Manny Pacquiao's fight against Chris Algieri. Let's give it a go. Now understand, Manny Pacquiao, like Frampton, big puncher. A lot of power. Right? Can drop guys. He's fighting Chris Algieri. Taller fighter, boxer, moves behind a jab. Mover. Right? Now, Manny Pacquiao comes out and he's a hunter. Right? He has the big punch. He knows it. So he's hunting down Chris Algieri. So he's trying to set up straight left hands, right? He comes in, then he throws heavy, straight left hands. They're power shots, right? He's hiding a little behind a jab, but he's really trying to go for broke. He's on his front foot. Chris Algieri is the one trying to move away. Pacquiao is trying to establish his power. You notice this from the very first round of the fight. Right? Put another way, Pacquiao's the hunter. He's hunting Chris Algieri. Now, what if instead of Pacquiao hunting Chris Algieri, what if in the first round, the power puncher, Manny Pacquiao, actually backs up? Right? What if the guy with the big punch isn't hunting? What if he's just backing up, having you come look for him, setting traps, right? Throwing the same kind of Manny Pacquiao jab. In other words, very inaccurate, really more of a pawing jab. But he's backing up. He's allowing you to step in on him. He wants you to engage. Yet, he doesn't want to be smothered. He likes to operate from distance. He wants room to throw that very accurate, very deadly right hand. Right? Now what if as you follow him, right, as you come forward, what if, unlike Juan Manuel Marquez, what if this guy is easy to hit? Right? In other words, unlike Manny Pacquiao, who is diving in and you're trying to hit him with counters because Pacquiao's off balance. Pacquiao doesn't have good balance. Right? Pacquiao's wide open for counters if you get the angle right. Right? It doesn't work well against Chris Algieri because Pacquiao is shorter. So when Pacquiao throws his left hand, he ducks his head. He's off at the side. It's hard to find. I think what we'll find in the Mayweather fight is Mayweather can fight low. So Mayweather's going to have his choice of how to counter Manny Pacquiao. Could be a lead left hook. He might even come over with the right hand over Pacquiao's left hand because Mayweather's a master at pull counters. But let's talk Carl Frampton. What if I'm fighting Carl Frampton and I say, all right, he's backing up. I'll be on my front foot. I'll hunt him down. Then as I come forward, I find that I can hit Frampton. So then, of course, Frampton, very crowd-friendly fight style. Then, of course, I come in and I'm trading with Carl Frampton. That's the trap Chris Avalos falls into in the first round. If we were here talking to a Carl Frampton opponent, if we were strategists advising Carl Frampton's opponent, what we might actually tell him to do is to not follow Frampton. I know it's counterintuitive, but the idea is Frampton's on his back foot for a reason. Frampton wants a dynamic in the fight. That's why he's on his back foot in the first round and the second round. Right? And so the point is, whoa, you know what? Maybe the strategy to have success against Frampton is to not follow him. It's to stay outside. It's to slow down the fight and then to try to win the slow rounds. Hate to tell you, but fighters aren't really here to make the fight as entertaining for you as possible. They're actually here to try to win the fight. Right? Jumping in on Carl Frampton might be an exciting fight, but that might not be an effective strategy. Because understand, unless you're very heavy-handed, unless you're Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., right? Unless you're very heavy-handed, if you land the same amount of punches as Carl Frampton, you're going to be at a disadvantage because Frampton is very heavy-handed and Frampton is very accurate. Right? So, I don't believe if you want to be effective against Frampton, you should pursue him. Right? If Manny Pacquiao had started the Chris Algieri fight on his back foot. Now, Manny, one man's opinion, doesn't have much of a back foot game. But if he had Frampton's back foot game, in other words, Frampton doesn't take a lot. Right? Doesn't need a lot to load up on punches. In other words, Frampton looks like he's backing up. Those punches still are fully loaded. Right? If Pacquiao had backed up on Chris Algieri, maybe Algieri would have been better off staying outside, just pumping a jab. Right? The idea is, hey, I'm outside and I'm moving. So you can't load up on shots. You can't hit me. You can't hurt me. Puncher, I'm going to take you into the later rounds. And we're not going to have enough engagement for me to get knocked down. Maybe that's the strategy. But in Frampton fights, what happens, I believe, is that opponents believe that he's defenseless. They up the ante. Chris Avalos has success in the first round. Right? He continues to be on his front foot in the second round. The third round, that's the round I want you to look at in this fight. The third round's crazy, folks. Chris Avalos decides to go to Frampton's body. I encourage the Carl Frampton people. He has a very loyal, very vocal group of fans. To look at that third round. Frampton has problems with the body attack. If you're trying to hunt down Guillermo Regundio, you're going to have to figure out how to help Frampton protect his body. Carl Frampton is going to have to look at that third round, and he's going to have to figure out how to deal with the guy who's up on him, working the body, who he can't clinch, and he's good at clinching. Right? But by the end of the third round, Chris Avalos is completely in Frampton's trap. Because the fight then becomes a shootout. And understand, Frampton has a front foot. Frampton's on his back foot by design, not necessity. So we get to the fourth round. And of course, Frampton starts to come forward. There's a weird scene where Chris Avalos seems to tweak his shoulder. The fight's still competitive. But you actually notice that Frampton, the hunted, can actually transform into the hunter. In other words, Frampton's a switch. Here's what I don't get with Frampton. He can be hit. He's not defensively gifted on his back foot or his front foot. The 5th round, dare I say it, that's a shootout, folks. That's what I call a shootout. Right? Frampton's coming forward. He's pushing the issue. His attitude is, hey, it's you or me. Right? By this point, Frampton knows he's landed enough shots on Avalos to slow Avalos down. Avalos can't meet the challenge at that point. He's been accustomed to Frampton on his back foot the first 2 rounds. He's been hit with some shots. He's been lulled into believing that his shots are having an effect on Frampton. But one of the secrets to Carl Frampton is he has a great chin. So when he comes forward, he knows he has a great punch. He knows he's accurate with it. He's aware of the fact that he's weakening you when he's hitting you with big shots. Forget his jab. That's perfunctory. He's just going like this. Forget his jab. Right? It's that straight right hand that he just drops in that does a lot of damage. It's that left hook that he throws that does a lot of damage. So he gets on his front foot, and understand, this is different than someone like a Vladimir Klitschko, right? Vladimir Klitschko likes to go 2nd, 3rd gear. He's cruising. Everything has a construct. Frampton throws his construct out the window, in my opinion. He's in 4th gear in that 5th round. Closes the show. The ref's seen enough. You understand that if the ref doesn't stop the fight, Avalos is probably going to end up on the canvas, and the fight's going to get completely lopsided before Avalos gets knocked out cold. Right? So Frampton's fascinating. I would encourage you to compare and contrast Frampton to Manny Pacquiao. Right? Pacquiao front foot heavy, Frampton back foot. Trying to set traps. Right? Neither guy really trying to land their jab. The jab's just a placeholder. Right? Frampton's just trying to get enough room to throw big shots. Right? I would argue that Frampton, who's unbeaten, right? That Frampton is more of a puncher than a boxer. Right? I give him credit. It's very unusual to see a guy with big-time punching power on his back foot. This would be like watching a Mike Tyson fight, where the fight starts and suddenly Mike is backing up, right? Letting the other guy come forward and trade with him, right? Throwing a jab that's not landing and then occasionally coming back with big shots. Getting rocked on occasion, but actually allowing the free-flowing exchange, right? For a few rounds before coming on his front foot. If I'm a Carl Frampton fan, my concerns are what happens when he fights a more elite opponent who decides, Carl, I'm not going to allow you to play the switch. You're not going to be the sub, then the dom, then the sub, then the dom. We're going to make this fight 50 Shades of Grey. Right? We're going to be somewhere in the middle here. In other words, I'm going to foot feint you to death, but I'm not going to be right in front of you. I'm not going to hunt you down. I'm going to do a Daniel Gill routine. I'm going to hover around you. Right? I'm going to go side to side. Right? I'm going to ignore your jab. You and I know that's a make-believe jab. Right? I'm just going to hover. I'm not going to be Kiko Martinez, bent over trying to come inside. Rather, I'm going to be hovering. I know you like space to operate. My game is going to be to block your shots and counter you to death while I'm hovering. right? The other thing, too, if I'm an opponent, is I have to fight small. I have to come in and I have to say, look, Carl Frampton stands pretty upright. I need to do what Chris Avalos did in the 3rd round, but I can't be front foot heavy in doing it. So I have to pick my spots, bend, and hit you in the body. One of the things I love about Gennady Golovkin is the fact that Golovkin, as he stands in front of you, when you try to grab him, he makes sure he's just far enough away from you to put up a hand to make sure you can't grab him. That's the distance someone fighting Carl Frampton needs. Let me make one other point. Sometimes accuracy is a bad thing. Right? If I know Carl Frampton is very accurate up top with the right hand, then when he starts to throw it, right, I don't have to watch it that much. I can put a glove up by my chin. You understand? Because I know he's so accurate that I know the punch is going to be right around here. Right? It's the guys who can alter angles. James DeGale. Right? Who, you know, can throw punches that hit you here, in addition to here, that are really hard to defend. Right? Carl Frampton might be, dare I say it, too accurate with his power shots. There might be an element of predictability here that an opponent might be able to exploit. Let me just say this, though. Frampton clearly is one of the most compelling fighters in the sport of boxing. Right? As I watch him, I keep expecting a car crash. And it never comes. Right? He's beaten many, many good fighters. Chris Avalos is a very solid fighter. You see Avalos, before this fight, he just knew he was going to win. Because he just knew he could fight several different styles. I don't think he was prepared for the trap Frampton lays out for him. Right? Look at the first round, Frampton back foot. It's curious. When a guy has a 70% KO percentage. Right? Look at the 5th round. Frampton front foot. As you look at both rounds, look at Frampton's defense. Right? I'm telling you, the 5th round, Frampton comes in. His attitude is clearly, it's him or me. Right? I feel I have this guy weak and I'm going to try to close this right here. Right? All I'm saying is at moments like that, any opponent of Frampton's needs to be prepared to hit him on counters. Right? To tie him up. You need to realize that the Frampton you see in round 1 might not be the guy trying to take your head off in round 5. Also, again, I know it's counterintuitive. I know fighters like to go for knockouts. But if it's early in a fight and you realize that you can land certain shots on Frampton, rather than try to empty the gun, you might want to get on your back foot. You might want to back away. Because if you hit Frampton with a birthday punch in the first round, he might survive it. He has a great chin. You might want to save that level of punch for later in the fight when he's a little bit tired and a little bit more vulnerable. Anyway, that's how I see it. The film's in my favorites folder here on YouTube. Give it a look. If you see a different secret to Frampton's success, if you think there's a different style dynamic going on here, I hope you'll leave that in the comment section to this video. I believe the secret to Frampton's success in a sentence is that he's a switch. And opponents get conned into believing they can trade with him. Let me know what you think the secret of his success is. Leave your comments here. Thanks for stopping by.